The framers of the Constitution were concerned about mob rule, or the tyranny of the majority, and they worked into the document protections for minorities, those that are not in the majority. This dates back to the colonists' experience breaking from British rule when protest activities like tarring and feathering sometimes got out of hand. After the Sugar Act was passed by Parliament in 1765, for example, mobs publicly called for no taxation without representation, and their protests included the hanging and burning of effigies of officials appointed by the British Crown. Massachusetts Governor Thomas Hutchinson's house was destroyed by an angry mob. In New York City, a group of merchants formed the Sons of Liberty, and chapters spread throughout the colonies, joining middling colonists who wanted to have a greater say in political affairs with elite colonists. Sam Adams of Massachusetts was one such elite colonist who spoke the language of the masses, trying to guide angry protests into productive ones. Despite the American Revolution's demographic tendencies, Americans had rejected a straight-out democracy or rule by the people because they were afraid it would turn into mob rule and the concentration of power in the hands of an ignorant mass, a mass that could overwhelm and hinder the rights of those in the minority. So revolutionary leaders considered themselves Republicans, not Democrats. That's Republicanism with a lowercase r, not the Republican Party that we'll discuss in Module 4. But they presumed that governments would be entrusted to leaders chosen for their abilities, and that those chosen to govern would be able to balance out the interests of the different classes to prevent any one group from gaining absolute power. Initially, elites had to accept state governments dominated by elected legislatures. Gradually, landowners, merchants, and lawyers reasserted their desires for centralized authority and the political prerogatives of wealth. Property ownership enabled voters and office holders to think and act independently, and supposedly they were less subject to bribes or the influence of any one group. An elite convention in Massachusetts pushed through a state constitution in 1780 with property qualifications for voting and for holding office, and also allowed for a governor with veto power and the power to make some appointments. The Massachusetts Constitution served as a model for later constitutions. This property qualification for voting would be dropped when the U.S. Constitution was drafted, but the protection for minority rights can be found in the Federalist Papers, as discussed in Module 5.6.5. This series of 85 essays was published between October 1787 and August 1788. And these are the background for the protection of minority rights. So in a representative government like the United States, minority rights are protected. People cannot be deprived of certain rights, even if an overwhelming number of people, like a mob, think that they should be. Take, for example, the description found in the textbook. Let's say that people decided that atheists, those who don't believe in God, were evil and should be imprisoned, even though the numbers of Americans that believe in God outweighs the number that do not. The rights of the minority, in this case the atheist rights, are protected. The right to freedom of religion, including the right not to practice a religion, can be found in the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights and are discussed in Module 2. Another example we can use to illustrate this concept, since we equated federalism with food, the layer cake and the marble cake, earlier in Module 5, is ice cream. If only a small percentage of people like to eat strawberry ice cream and everyone else liked vanilla, then the minority of people eating the strawberry ice cream could continue to do so, even if the majority of people eating vanilla wanted them to conform to becoming vanilla-eating people. So again, minority rights are protections for those that are not in the majority. This module on federalism may be making you hungry. At this point, I suggest getting yourself a healthy snack, reviewing the video and your textbook again, and answering the questions. Enjoy.